Hello everyone, I'm Patrick Riggs and this is and today we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court case Torcaso versus Watkins. So this was a landmark decision about religious freedom and the limits of government authority when it comes to religion. It helps define how the First Amendment protects not only the right to practice a religion, but also the right to believe in one. Through this case, the Supreme Court made it clear that no one should be denied public office because of their personal beliefs or their lack of them.
The parties involved in this case were Roy Torcaso and Clayton Watkins. Roy Torcaso was a resident of Maryland who had been appointed to serve as a notary public, which is a public official who certifies the documents and signatures. However, when Torcaso went to finalize his document, he was told that he had to declare a belief in God in order to hold the position. Because he did not believe in God, he ended up refusing to take that oath, and as a result, Clayton Watkins, the clerk of that appointment, denied Torcaso his commission. This led Torcaso to challenge the Maryland requirement, arguing that it violated his constitutional rights. And in this case, Torcaso was the plaintiff and Clayton Watkins was, he represented the enforcement of the law.
So the basic facts of this case, so at the time, the Maryland Constitution required anyone holding a public office to declare belief in the existence of God. This clause excluded atheists and others who didn't hold traditional religious beliefs from serving in government positions. So in 1960, when Roy was given the job, he decided he wasn't going to declare it because of his personal beliefs as an atheist. As a result, the clerk of court, Clayton Watson, denied his commission. Feeling that this rule was unfair and unconstitutional, Torcaso decided to take legal action. He argued that Maryland's religious test violated the First Amendment, which guarantees freedom of religion and freedom from religion, as well as the 14th Amendment, which applies those rights to the states and ensures equal protection under the law. Initially, the Maryland Court of Appeals ruled against Torcaso, claiming that the state had the right to set qualifications for its public office. Torcaso disagreed and appealed his case to the United States Supreme Court, asking them to decide whether requiring belief in God as a condition for public service violated the Constitution.
The main legal question before the Supreme Court was, does a state law that requires a person to declare a belief in God in order to hold a public office violate the First Amendment's protection of religious freedom? The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in favor of Roy Torcaso. Justice Hugo Black delivered the opinion of the court, stating that both the federal and state governments are forbidden from forcing anyone to profess belief or disbelief in any religion. This requirement, the court said, did violate the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. The Establishment Clause prevents the government from establishing or favoring any religion over the next, while the Free Exercise Clause protects individuals' rights to follow or not follow a religion of their choice. The court also based its position on the 14th Amendment, which ensures that the protections in the Bill of Rights apply to state governments as well as federal government. By connecting these two amendments, the court confirmed that states cannot discriminate against people based on their religious beliefs when it comes to upholding public roads. In other words, the government must remain neutral in all matters of religion, and citizens have the right to uphold public positions regardless of their faith or lack of belief.
So the significance of this ruling was highly significant for protecting religious freedom in the United States and reinforced the idea that there's not only a freedom to religion, but a freedom from religion. Meaning people have the right not to participate or not to believe or participate in religious practices. This case also strengthens the separation of church and state, ensuring that the government cannot favor religious officials over non-religious officials. So this case set a powerful, like a strong base for cases to come in the future against discriminating non-believers and the limits of government involvement in religious matters. It made clear that public office should be open to everyone, regardless of what they believe, and they should not be excluded from serving their country because they do not believe in that.
In my personal opinion, I completely agree with the Supreme Court's decision in this Tarkaso versus Watkins case. In a country built on principles of equality and liberty, it would be unfair and unconstitutional to require someone to believe in God in order to serve a public role. The government should represent all people, no matter who they believe in or what their religious views are. By ruling in favor of Tarkaso, the court ensured that people's personal beliefs would not be used against them in their careers or in their civic daily life.
In my opinion, I agree with this case, or I agree with the ruling of the Supreme Court, because I believe that when the Constitution was made all those years ago, they were trying to protect us from situations like this. And I think the Supreme Court made the right decision, and protecting religious rights, religious freedoms are important to allow people to move freely, speak freely, believe freely in our country. So a little compare and contrast we have. We're going to compare Tarkaso versus Watkins with Minersville School District versus Gobetis. So Lillian and William Gobetis, they were Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what they believed in. They refused to salute the American flag in school. And this was in 1940, right before World War II. Pennsylvania schools expelled them because they wouldn't salute to the flag, because it was, for a Jehovah's Witness, it was a grave image and they weren't allowed to salute it. So they were expelled for that. And so it ended up going to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled 8-1 against the children, prioritizing national unity over religious freedom. So just to compare the two a little bit, so the government authority and patriotic rituals override religious objections, and individual rights and religious freedom overrode government restrictions. It kind of shows the shift in the Supreme Court's approach from prioritizing state interests in 1940 to protecting personal liberty in 1961. Between these 2 years, I know there was a lot of cases, and I know this Minersville School District one was overturned in 1943. But I think this was kind of a turning point. It shows you the shift of kind of what the courts were overruling and overturning. And then just to contrast it a little bit, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Tarkaso versus Watkins, but in the Minersville versus Gobetis case, they ruled against Gobetis. That kind of just goes back to what I was saying, just the difference in years. I mean, it's 21 years, but in those 21 years, there is many overrules and overturnings that are more towards people's personal liberty.
Yeah, when we look at these two cases together, we can see a clear shift in how the Supreme Court viewed religious freedom over time. Gobetis showed the court prioritizing state power and national unity, while Tarkaso reflected a stronger protection of personal liberty and individual rights. In just over 20 years, the court moved from defending government authority to defending the freedom of conscience, showing how America's understanding of religious freedom continued to grow and mature. In conclusion, Tarkaso versus Watkins in 1961 was a landmark case that strengthened the constitutional protection of religious freedom in the United States. The court decided that Maryland's requirement for public officials to declare a belief in God violated both the First and 14th Amendments. The decision reinforced that the government must stay separate from religion, and that all individuals, religious or not, have an equal right to participate in public life.
And this just goes back to, we don't only have the freedom to religion, but from religion. And this just gives us a good base and a good standard moving forward in cases to come, that we do have the freedom to believe and have religious freedom to do whatever we'd like. Thank you.